Hear the patter of the hatter. Wiggle waggle. Something happening here. Again from Wobbly. I'm making myself. What's it out there? So just got to get that through the fiberglass. And if I had the tools, I would be doing very well. As it goes, I'm short on drill bits. This wonderful drill bit here, which is a wood drill bit, and it sort of worked. But it's not really made for fiberglass, and I didn't really want to damage it. So it's all a case of like, jobs get easier when you've got the right tools, and I think I just have to improvise. It's an interesting phenomenon, but if you give someone the right tools, does that just encourage them to do more work? Sometimes you just can't beat craft. I'm going to put that in there more out of hope than reason. Maybe I had to get away with it. Well, it's not the final position, so I'm just going to leave it there for now, but that may work. We'll see. Well, it's a glorious new year, isn't it? Like fantastic skies, and it all looks good at the moment, especially when it's not summer. So that's the issue here, really. We are dealing with a very, very dry winter, and it's very cold at night. The temperatures have reached up to 20 degrees in December already. So, bearing that in mind, my predictions for this year are going to be full of, I would say, environmental catastrophe. It's not a happy message, but I think we should all start be learning to adapt. We've had enough practice now. We've had enough disasters in this world, and everything that was going on in the last 5 years is on a steady increase. So, my solution, and that's to be creative, is to mitigate the water shortages that we're going to face over the next 10, 15, 20 years and 30 years even more. And that is capturing as much rainwater as we possibly can. That is planting as much vegetation as we can, so that biomass itself is a form of water storage. And that is slowing down also runoff and preventing soil erosion, and being ecologically minded, basically. So the structure you can see actually behind me was aptly termed the Erection by a couple of Dutch people who were great volunteers on the day and helped me erect it. If I just step to one side, you can actually see what I'm doing. So what you see is the block work, and then I've got infill with concrete, reinforced concrete, and faced with the natural stone that we find all around the land. So I'm building three columns or three corners to this structure. So what you see here is the facade, the entranceway as you come into the outdoor kitchen. And I've gone as high as I want to with the facing stones, and I'm going to continue with the block work up to the top there. And on the opposite corner there will be another pillar, so effectively 3 columns going up, and a metal ring will sit on the top of that when I've decided what height the actual water tower is going to be. I think that's actually too high, and the reason I say that is because when I bring the joists in from the surrounding posts, I want a decline in effect, so that the water will run straight into the centre of the water tower. So I'm building, as I've mentioned before, a concave roof. It collects water in the middle of the building, and I've actually tested it now, and I've got a lovely tap on it, and it all works. But the one big thing I didn't talk about before was how to create many more uses for a water tower. And other than being Houdini, I think the original idea I had was when I was in Africa, and I was helped build a big pond there, and they were already keeping tilapia fish. They were just keeping it for ornamental reasons, but tilapia fish is poor man's food all over the world, and there are different types, 6, 7, 8 varieties, which are very edible, and some of them grow to quite a large size. Now, if my reading is correct, I believe that fish grow according to the size of the water they live in, or the water source that they live in terms of width and not depth. So maybe the most I can expect from a water tower like this is to have 1.5 pound tilapia fish living inside it, and all I have to do is throw a net or two, or actually stand on the edge there with a fishing rod if I'm stupid enough, and collect my next protein meal. And I think that's called fish farming. So tilapia fish, lingi they call it in Spanish. Most people don't know about it here because, as I say, it's a poor man's food. But people can keep tilapia fish in 1,000-litre containers, and without having to need to go to a lake or a sea or the river or anything like that to catch their food. And they breed very readily, and some tilapia fish actually don't need any type of treatment at all. They are really resistant to many forms of diseases, and they basically can live in most water environments, freshwater environments. So that's the plan, tilapia fish. May even build a little ladder up one side and go for my occasional dip if I need to. But as I say, as a permaculturist, we're always looking for multiple uses, and all that's going to be finished quite lovely. It's going to be a nice spectacle as you walk in, faced with stone on 3 sides. Hi again. So hoping you can see what I'm doing up on the top of the ladder here. This is my 3,500 litre system for the outdoor kitchen, and I've built 3 pillars around it. This is just one corner pillar. On top of the 3 pillars I'm going to put a metal ring, which is going to be the supporting ring for the joists, which will sit in horizontal fashion from the outside posts when I build the shelter on top of this. And that way, with a roof, an inclined roof heading inwards towards the cistern here, I will collect rainwater. Now, it's really #1 priority on a farm in Catalonia nowadays, and probably much of Europe and much of the world, where we have to prioritize the capture of water. So if you're not doing that through vegetation, then we are doing it through human-made structures, buildings, that type of thing. So it's all good to have a green roof, but this is going to be able to even sustain some of the immediate vegetation around me. So as I say, it's the outdoor kitchen. Now, behind this pillar, there's a cavity in there. You can see my hand going inside, and I wondered, well, what do I do with the cavity? Should I reinforce it somehow? Should I just leave it empty? And in fact, there may be 2 other cavities I'm dealing with as well. And because I don't really have an immediate plan for it, what I wanted to do is to be able to create structure that maybe in time will subside. If you imagine 3,500 litres of water, and the weight of a roof on top of these pillows may actually push downwards upon the concrete base which I have there, and create subsidence. So I wanted to create something that could take up movement. So what I'm doing is pure and simple. I'm putting in baked rocks. And now I make rock fires basically. When I clean up the vegetation around it, I'll just rake it all up into a huge pile, set it alight, and it burns for about 3 or 4 days. And at the end of it, I get a load of rock and ash, and that goes back underneath the trees. So I've got huge mounds of these all over the place. I'm going to fill up the cavity here, which means that if I ever need to put in a pipe or anything like that, I could probably quite easily drill a hole through the blocks, through the concrete blocks, into the fiberglass water system, and insert another pipe without having to go through massive amounts of set concrete. So that's the idea. And just when I'm actually done and finished with that, I will probably just render here to prevent any losses, material coming out. Well, 3 buckets so far, it's not bad, and I'm just under halfway. But another idea just occurred to me. This tank is going to be a lovely little dipping pool for me if I can put one of those rope ladders hanging from the inside so I can climb back out. Now in the summer, when it's maybe 45 degrees here, this thing's going to heat up. So the idea of having aggregate like this is to dissipate the heat. So not only does it dissipate pressure when you're building, say, retaining walls, you put a load of aggregate behind the retaining walls, and it prevents the pressure of the soil on the actual wall itself. But here we are, it dissipates the heat, so that means heat can't directly penetrate most of the water system here, and that will allow the temperature to cool down a bit, give me a nice little dip, but actually prevent a load of algal growth. There won't be a pump in here or anything like that, and I need to cover the top to prevent any direct sunlight from entering. So yes, allow for gradual movement over the years, but secondly, to dissipate the heat through this aggregate during the high summer. So directly in front of me, behind the camera, is the water tower, and I'm paneling the insides of the 3 pillars which I've constructed. And it's not just for ornamental reasons, it's actually going to be holding in the infill within the pillars itself. So I've been measuring up the wood. I've got some quite expensive wood actually. Here in Spain, wood is expensive. I got some tongue and groove, and I've just marked it with some spray cans, and I need to cut it to leave a protrusion of about 1/2 centimetre, so that when I render the outside of the pillars, it flushes up to the edge of the wood. So, as I say, I came in 1/2 centimetre, you can see that, all the way along, and which means that it's a little bit wider, so that when I fill it tight against the barrel itself, the tube, about 1/2 centimetre is going to be sticking out from the concrete blocks, and that's going to be rendered up into. Let's check it out. Blackbird on the edge of my pond, drinking from the upturned wine bottle, and the pool within their eyes hopping from one to another, in this custom-made glass visage of many colours contrasted against their down. Abrupt movements of bodies and feet are reflected in the tossing of their heads. As a leaf is flicked and a twig is harried, it eventuates to the moistened sand and increases its turnover rate, where the fat of the land is boistered by its shitting. Oh, the wind picks up and it perches higher, its soft plumage buffers the blustering eddies. This chain of attention briefly focuses on the scuttling found. And then what you have to allow for walking and that sort of thing as well. And there's going to be a slight air gap of some sort behind there, because the idea I've got here is to backfill the other side of that with soil, and I'm going to create a small garden frontage. I'll show you. So take a look at this and look behind me. You see I've already got a couple of plants in there, and that's the frontage, and that's going to be infilled. So that's the other side of that column, that pillar I was butting up against. And that small air gap's going to allow a little bit of drainage, especially when it rains, because any water that's kept inside is going to rot the wood away quite easily. I just want to point out one thing. The actual tube is leaning over, so there's, I worked it out, it's a ½ centimetre gap at the bottom leaning over towards this corner, which is why I've had to cut this at a slight angle. And effectively what I'm doing is covering up a mistake, if you want to call it a mistake. It's all aesthetics, so really it's not a mistake, it could actually be a happy accident. Oh, grey squirrel with hardly a moment's respite, claws infallibly cling along the rail of a trellis, makes headway into the garden domain. It humps and stretches with sporadic ease, comforted with every object that it meets, buying more often than not for a beneficial mouthful. Oh, the towel, so perfectly poised, counterweighs every tentative juxtaposition. Upside down and around, it follows in a flash. On reaching the limits of his territory, endeavors moves in the opposite direction, but not so inquisitive. The best locations have already been remarked. The clambering moves, arching his thorny spines, provides no obstacle for the missionary bees. Oh, its red hips are just a passing gift. The clambering moves, arching its thorny spines, provides no obstacle for the missionary bees. His passing gift is just those red hips.